90% of Americans are expected to see bigger paychecks. 3 million more Americans have received bonuses. Oh, and by the way, those bonuses that the Democrats like Nancy Pelosi, they're calling thousands of dollars in bonuses crumbs. It's a crumb if you're a $100 million net wealth person like Nancy Pelosi. Are those crumbs? I don't think that's a crumb. No. All right, also, on the economy, President Trump is reversing what was a precipitous decline that we witnessed under 8 disastrous years of failed Obama policies. President Trump is cutting regulation at a historic rate. We're eliminating 16 for every new regulation enacted. Look what it's done for the energy sector alone. ISIS has been crushed because he has allowed the military to do their job. We are now rebuilding the military. Thank you. And the president's demanding that the border wall be built in any immigration legislation. Now, if a Democrat had accomplished half of what President Trump has at this point in their presidency, the liberal media would be trying to put this individual on Mount Rushmore. They want Obama on Mount Rushmore, in spite of his failure. But we also have those in the media in this country. That's not how they operate. Now, for over a year, the news media, colluding with, of course, liberals in this country and basically advancing their agenda, they have been hyperventilating over what we have exposed so far as a hoax, a conspiracy, a fabrication. And that is, they created about Donald Trump and Trump-Russia collusion, even though the media knows there's no evidence to prove any of this is true after nearly 18 months. There is zero evidence, but yet look at the disgraceful coverage you get every single night from your so-called mainstream media.
A dizzying 24 hours in the Russia investigation, no longer just inching toward the president. This morning, it is more like careening.
I think this is a potentially more dangerous situation than Watergate, and we're at a very dangerous moment. And that's because we are looking at the possibility that the President of the United States and those around him during an election campaign colluded with a hostile foreign power to undermine the basis of our democracy.
Donald Trump is afraid. A political hurricane is out there at sea for him. We'll call it Hurricane Vladimir, if you will, the whole Russian thing.
This is evidence of willingness to commit collusion.
There's outright treason. I mean, there is no question that what he is doing is giving aid and comfort to the enemy.
Tom Friedman said the election hacking is at the caliber of a Pearl Harbor or a 9/11. Do you agree with that?
I completely agree with that. Donald Trump now sits at the threshold of impeachment.
Let me get to It just shows you the people in the media are nothing but liars and frauds. And by the way, they're really just an extension of the Democratic Party. By the way, speaking of liberal Democrats, they've been in lockstep with the media. And you'll notice they all say the same thing. They parrot each other, their fake, phony talking points in their little bubble. So you've had Democrats, the media, over a year pushing a made-up false narrative about so-called collusion. But now it's all beginning to start boomeranging back, as I predicted at the beginning of this year. Everything the media has accused Donald Trump of and his campaign of doing with Russia is exactly what Hillary Clinton and the DNC and Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele are all guilty of, and people should go to jail and likely will go to jail over all of this. And that is the real Russia collusion story. And unlike the media's fake news narrative, we have real concrete, incontrovertible evidence of real crimes and real wrongdoing. Let's look at the phony dossier, for example. Hillary Clinton, the DNC, they paid over $12+ million for the former British spy. Oh, I thought foreigners weren't supposed to influence our elections. Anyway, to create a completely unverified dossier that used Russian government lies and sources, and Steele, who hates Donald Trump, didn't want him to win the election, then briefs the media outlets, let's see, like the New York Times, the Washington Post, Yahoo News, the New Yorker, fake news, the whole network, CNN, and they try to influence the election and manipulate the American voters. And Fusion GPS, their co-founder, Glenn Simpson, he testified that the Clinton campaign and the DNC were aware of all of this media outreach. Now, that sounds an awful lot like that they were using a phony Russian narrative, phony Russian information that they bought and paid for to influence the American people and to win the election that way. And then on top of that, you got Steele meeting with the FBI, Steele giving them all of this Russian-sourced information. And we now know from 2 GOP memos that that dossier was used to lie to a FISA court judge, all in an effort to get a warrant to spy on a Trump campaign associate and the campaign, that, of course, being Carter Page. And the memos also are exposing how former FBI Director Andrew McCabe, he testified without the dossier, the application for that warrant would never have even been applied for, certainly not approved. And we know from the Grassley-Graham memo that the bulk of that application consisted of Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for dossier. Now remember, this is the dossier that James Comey testified under oath was salacious and unverified. The FBI and Fusion GPS, they never bothered to even begin to corroborate this. And then you had Comey, remember back in January of 2017, briefing the president-elect before he was inaugurated about how the dossier existed. And he said it was unverified and salacious. Now, that was only months before when he, in 2016, in October, well, that dossier that's unverified was good enough to use as a justification to spy on Carter Page. This is what we call the deep state in action. This is unelected, Obama holdover bureaucrats. They thought they knew better than you, the American people, about who should be the next president. And make no mistake about this, the deep state tried to stop Donald Trump from ever becoming president, and now they're doing everything they possibly can do to damage and destroy his presidency. And at one point, remember, at the beginning of his administration, over 125 leaks in 126 days. Now, here's the thing about all of this. The corrupt officials are all now being exposed. They never thought this would happen. Everything is boomeranging back on them. And as we like to say on my Twitter account, tick-tock, what we have been reporting on for the past year is only a small sample of what is coming. We expect the Inspector General's report to have a lot of new information, and that will be coming either by the end of this month or early next month. All right, joining us here at CPAC with reaction, former Deputy Assistant to the President, give him a big hand, Fox News contributor, National Security Strategist Sebastian Gorka, and former Secret Service agent, NRA TV contributor, Dan Bongino. Good to see you.
Brother.
How are you?
Good.
Welcome to CPAC. They all like free footballs.
Me too.
Let me start with the year that has been. You were in the White House in the beginning of this. Here you have an incredible turnaround in the economy. You know, all in 2016, Dr. Gorka, I said to my audience, I said every day, and I did it on purpose not to hear myself talk. I said, oh, we have, what, 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty after 8 years of Obama, worst recovery since the 40s, lowest labor participation rate since the 70s. We doubled the national debt, and the lowest home ownership rate in 51 years. In 1 year, this dramatic change has occurred, but it's not reported on. Why?
Why? Because the majority of the media is in the tank for Hillary Clinton and the DNC. And let's just be very clear. If we didn't have President Trump's Twitter feed and Sean Hannity, Hillary Clinton would be president. Okay?
So all of us...
All right.
I'm a convert, by the way. There were times I said, "Oh, please don't tweet that." No.
He won.
It comes out.
He won. He's up to 47 million followers.
I think when you add all the social media, it's like
on
over
Twitter,
100.
just on Twitter.
Just on Twitter.
Why? Because he's jumping over the fake news industrial complex and saying, look, this is the truth. Do you want to defeat ISIS? Right? Do you want people to have jobs? Do you want to close the border? What is the Democrat Party going to run on in November? We don't want jobs, we don't want growth, and ISIS should come back? Is that what they're going to run on?
They're going to run on I hate Donald Trump.
Right, bingo, right? But not even the Russia thing is working for them. Because where's the collusion, Sean? The collusion is in the DNC. It's Hillary, her lawyers, a foreign MI6 spy, not registered as a foreign agent.
Oh, wait a minute, FARC matters?
When there's a Republican president, I guess it does, right? But if it's a Democrat candidate, I guess not. And think of one more thing, $13 million. I mean, that's a pretty good, that's the kind of job I'd like. $13 million for one file, that's made up. It's propaganda that came from where?
Russia.
Russia. okay? So they colluded to undermine our election. I'll just close on this and I'll let Dan talk. If you didn't believe in God, well, you have to change your mind on November the 7th, right? I mean, it just... And we had divine intervention because she had the media, she had the deep state, she had spent $1.4 billion. Oh, and guess who won? The outsider won. So God bless Donald Trump.
Well said. Dan, it's been, and I remember I was here in 2015.
Yeah.
And when all of this got started up, on this stage I interviewed Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Rand Paul,
sure,
and all these candidates. Here we are, we've had a Republican president, and look at the turnaround in a year. I want to ask the same question. No credit given.
Yeah.
And what's even worse is we've been lied to for over a year. There's no evidence of this, but there is evidence of collusion, paying for a Russian dossier. The Uranium One deal is unconscionable.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk tonight with the lawyer for the informant that was on the inside. Where are we in terms of an information crisis?
Well, it's bad, Sean. You know, I always think, like, what's the Democrats' slogan? What's the headline? I call it the Wheaties box message for the midterms, and it's going to be Dems 2018, crumbs and collusion. Vote for us. Vote for crumbs, because that's all they have. But the irony of this whole thing is the Democrats produced crumbs under the Obama era. Sean, numbers don't lie. Sooner or later, they're going to have to come to accept the fact that their secular stagnation theory, in other words, it wasn't Obama's fault, the economy just stunk for all kinds of secular reasons, is done. It's 1 year in office, and we've had 3 quarters now of 3% growth. Obama never hit it at all. The numbers don't lie. The Obamaites and the Obama files are eventually going to have to reconcile that. And on the collusion front, collusion's real. Don't anybody in this room think Russian collusion didn't happen. It just didn't happen with the Trump team. There's absolutely no question right now that Hillary Clinton dealt with a foreign agent in Christopher Steele. He's British. He's not from the United States, who in turn dealt with Russian sources. And I'm telling you, you know the tick-tock on this one. There is a lot more to come about Steele's interactions with the Russians that you don't know about that will deeply disturb even a lot of the most skeptical people in the room.
This is the thing that I'm trying to understand here. To me, this is the biggest story that the media has missed in their lifetime. If you have a presidential candidate, and we're supposed to care that the